So before we had gone live,
Yeah.
I had said, Barry, I have a question for you. You had just gone on a monologue. I don't want to say about what or anything like that, but you had just told me some information.
I did.
As you were telling me that information, you were staring directly into the camera. Do you have the AI turned on?
Of course I do.
Okay. I'm making sure because it looked really unnatural.
Actually, to be fair, I was watching back. What was I watching? Oh, the thing that's about to go live on Monday, and I was like, unless you know you're looking for it, it works really well on an interview situation because you're not really looking at me anyway. You're looking at the guest,
at the person.
You happen to glance over to me, then I'm paying rapturous attention, and I'm just like, genius. I like it a lot. But I've had to switch it off from. I accidentally hooked it up during a Teams meeting the other day, and that was just intimidating. Yeah, it was just all of that. It was mad. But no, when you're doing like as we do, like when you've got the notes and the script on either side and all that sort of stuff, I find for the interview stuff especially, it works really quite nicely.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It just looks really unnatural. I can't wait till you read the story, and it's just like the story this week is blah blah blah. Speaking of the story, really cool.
Before you think, because it takes in you blinking. I mean, that's what I really. I just think it's such a little thing, but the fact it recognizes that you're blinking and it lets you blink, because then it naturalizes it a bit. Anyway, sorry.
A little bit. The story tonight is a cool one. We got what? AR memories, I guess, is the thumbnail. Time traveling with augmented reality. I tried to make it as clear as possible. People are using augmented reality to go back in time, look at your memories. That's the gist. And there's a lot more to it that's really interesting when you unpack it from a human factors perspective. There's some, let's say, training applications and some safety applications, some mental health applications. Like, there's some really cool, deep things that we can go into today. If you happen to be a Patreon supporter and are listening live right now, you'll find in the Discord, there's a little link for y'all. You can join us. You can join us in the pre-show today or the post-show. And this is something that we've opened up to all our Patreons now. So any Patreon listening, any supporter of the show can come into the Patreon channel on Discord. And there's a link waiting for you. You can come on in. Let us know what you want to talk about, and you can talk with us right here on air. I think that's pretty fab. Oh, hey, speaking of, we have a non-Patreon here, but someone who I invited to come and say hi because they have something they'd like to talk about. Give me just a minute here. I'm gonna throw off all these graphics just so that way it's a little more cleaner. All right, let's bring on our first guest. Hey, Camille, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Hey, good. So you and I had a chance to chat earlier, and what do you want to talk about? We're in the pre-show.
Well, I have been thinking about the whole augmented reality memory thing, and I think it's really fascinating. And when we first were talking about it, I was thinking about it from the cognitive perspective. Research scientist, research to practice, which of course, I have a lot of passion around that. And the research around memory is really, really fascinating. And one of the things that I thought of first was about flashbulb memories. Are you familiar with the concept around flashbulb memories? Like, for people my parents' age, it was always, where were you when Kennedy was shot? And right. So for me, it is my generation. It was where were you when you found out about 9/11, and that sort of thing. And so people, they have these really vivid experiences of this is where I was. And the scientists have found, people who study this sort of stuff, is that most of those memories are not true, and they're not accurate. It's not that they're lying, but they just don't. Although they're super, super vivid. Mm-hmm. Down to the details. I was wearing this shirt and I was with, Joe Bob or whatever it is. But when you go back and actually document it, they're not terribly accurate. Really fascinating papers on it. And so, of course, when 9/11 happened, there was all these budding scientists that went out and had people write down everything, and then, set it aside, and then, 2 weeks, 6 months, blah 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 later, they, of course, replicated all those findings, which are counterintuitive. People hate that. They want to be able to say, no, I'm going to hold on to this thing that feels so right. It feels like it should be a really good thing. And my interpretation of that, I'm not a memory researcher. Let me caveat that for all the memory researchers that might be listening. It just always has occurred to me that maybe there's something adaptive about that. Maybe there's reasons that we sort of revisit these memories and change them, tweak them a bit to suit our own story. And so we don't have that happening anymore. If it's that, and now every time that we revisit it, okay, so this is so weird. So now when I'm messing with my hair, it's doing it. Anyway, sorry. Squirrel. So that when we revisit it, it's always exactly the same, and we don't go through that process of tweaking it or
sort of rewriting it to our own narrative, right?
Yeah, we're losing that. Yeah,
this is a huge issue or controversy, I guess, in eyewitness testimony, because you have, based on eyewitnesses, they're telling their recollection of events, and basically these memories can be corrupted by different stimuli, right? So you can have somebody asking leading questions that they weren't even thinking about the situation in that way before, and then a new piece of information goes back and rewrites that memory. It's absolutely fascinating. And you're right, there's so many different applications with this type of technology that we're talking about on the show tonight, where it could open up a number of those can of worms where, it's going to impact the way that you actually remember events.
And when you're talking about training, I do a lot of work in safety, so in high-risk industrial settings. So I can see it being really good, where people could actually go in and say, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that this thing was connected with that thing, and that those happen together, and then this bad event happens. I can see that being really cool, that people could then start associating stuff that they wouldn't normally associate. So that part I could see working really nicely, but it would just have to be used so explicitly, but for just casual use, I can see us losing, I don't know. It's just the implications and again, the ethics of it are really important. So you can tell I've been thinking about it all day since then, and with good.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think, using the example that you just had around being able to show how things happen, if we use it to record or use it to replace testimony, then again, like what we have with video at the moment, the press have a habit of taking a slice of whatever it is and showing that, and you lose the wider context, which could also be hugely important. It would be interesting to see who owns the intellectual property behind this. Therefore, how could anybody else then use it and abuse it and take that bit forward?
Well, and then when you look too at how well they can create false video and false audio. And so now when you've got all of that, could it be that you're looking at a false memory? That it completely generated by AI.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm imagining sort of you have pieces of information based on this very small aperture, this very small lens that you're looking through, which, if these memories are recorded via camera, then you have one perspective of an environment. And so there needs to be some sort of interpolation of other environmental factors going on at that time, right? If you somehow took a video of a fire and you're in the middle of like a pyrotechnic show or something like that, what is happening off screen that then this system needs to interpolate as you're looking at it in augmented reality? It needs to fill in those gaps. And you're right, it could mess with your memory. It's like, no, it wasn't like that. It was not like that. But then as you remember the event, you're recoding it with what you experienced in AR, and then it's just bye.
Exactly. Indeed. So it's fascinating. That is really, but I loved your example though of being able to share a memory with, somebody who's across the world.
Oh yeah. We talked about that earlier. I haven't mentioned it on the show yet, but yeah, I was mentioning to Camille earlier that what can you share memories with other people, right? Can I take a video of something going on here? My son riding his bike for the first time. Send it to my mom. She puts on the AR glasses and is able to watch him ride his bike for the first time. Is that something that can be possible? I don't see why not.
Well, don't we do that already with a video?
We do, but I mean, now it's a memory.
Yeah, I guess, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because you watch the video of this, and really all it's doing is placing the video, is contextualizing the video into a location. So actually, yeah, that means you wouldn't be able to do that, because unless your mum was actually at the street or wherever it is that that your son's ridden his bike, then they won't be able to see the memory, because it contextualizes the memory to the location, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you won't. Yeah, sharing stuff wouldn't be as easy, unless you shared it to basically an AR room. A VR room.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like you make it in VR, and that'll be. But Camille, thank you for coming on the pre-show and sharing your thoughts. Did you want to share anything else with plug anything while you're on?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about our research to practice answering the so what question webinar series that myself and Julie Gilpin McKinn are doing. So we've done a few of them so far. This is through Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, which I know you two are very familiar with, and I imagine a lot of your attendees are. Or I don't know what podcasters are called.
We call them listeners,
viewers. So it's really about having as a conversational style opportunity for practitioners, human factors practitioners, ergonomics practitioners to learn about some of the science, be exposed to some of the science that's out there in a way that is really focused on it being translatable, digestible, really that research to practice, and really practice back to research. As an academic, I know a lot of times what I'm looking for, what are the issues and questions that we need to be addressing in a rigorous and empirical way? And we need to make sure that we're communicating what we are finding in a digestible and applicable way back to practice. And so I don't do basic science. I really am trying to do rigorous and empirical science in a way that can be used easily. And what we're looking to do is facilitate communications of that science to the folks who need it. So we're taking seminal work from Human Factors, even whether it's more recent articles from the journals or papers that have just been cited a whole bunch of times, and then finding practitioners that can use that, having them on the webinar together and talking with each other, and then taking a whole bunch of questions from attendees as well. So we had a great conversation, Nick and I did, about partnering up with you guys and seeing if we can't do a little bit better job of making sure people know we're out there, and looking forward to working together with y'all on this. So here we go.
Stay tuned for that. More details coming.
Yeah.
But when we know more, we'll let everyone know. And thank you, Camille, for coming on. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Wow, that was fun. That was great.
This whole people dropping in before we get in with the show is a bit like a chilled way of getting up to speed. I really like it. It's good fun.
It's a what? Wait, a what?
It's a nice chilled way of getting up to speed with the pace of the actual show recording.
Oh yeah, it really accelerates us. Let's see here. So we have about 15 minutes. If anyone else wants to dial in. There's a link. There's a link for our Patreons in our Patreon Discord channel. You can go stop by there, and we've also opened up our show notes to any of our Patreons too, as a way to better allow their voices to be heard on the show. We'll call you out if you have a comment that you'd love to make about the topic at hand. We've sort of automated the process for dropping in the show notes and the story in there, so that way everyone has a chance to get in on Thursdays and let us know about it. We're really trying to increase the value for our Patreon members. I don't know if that's been apparent or not.
Oh, you kept that quiet. I'll tell you, it's not like you've mentioned that on every single show and on all the changes you're making. So.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? In fact, I am going to mention that too. Let's see here. Yeah, that's
But we haven't you haven't mentioned the most obvious thing, and I'm a bit disappointed, if I'm honest.
What, the Black Mirror connection?
No.
Oh.
Your clocks have changed, and I'm here.
The what?
Your clocks have changed.
Oh, that.
Dude. I mean, granted, you did a lot of prep work to make sure I was here. The fact that, for those of you who haven't been here in the last, 2 times I've been on when the clocks have changed, I've either been very late or very early. And this time Nick made sure that there was no problems by sending me a proper invite to say, get here on time. It was all good. And I've been here, and I'm ready to go. In fact, I'm quite looking forward to it because I'm quite perky because it's still only just 9:15 here.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, I'm going to get to bed before midnight. Well, theoretically, I'm going to get to bed before midnight. So
you know what? Speaking of getting to bed before midnight, I had a bout of insomnia on Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, and I was up until 4 a.m. because we had the time. So it's like this perfect confluence of things. I'm testing different timings of medication to see what is causing my insomnia. But between the time change, between the Mandalorian dropping at midnight, between
there we go.
a cat that just would not stop yowling all night, and there was some other stuff going on too. The change in medication, just all of it. Perfect confluence of events that made me stay up till 4. Last night, I got to bed at like 9:30, and it was crazy.
That's the whole sleep thing this week for me has been really weird. So the start of this week, so back into the weekend and then into this, I haven't been well, it's fair to say. And so throughout the days, I've been doing mixtures of sleeping, having laptops beside me so I can wake up, attend meetings, work, do all that sort of stuff. And then when I've just basically exhausted myself, then go back to sleep again. And it's just been, considering I don't sleep well at the best of times, there's been a lot of sleeping going on. So I'm quite pleased to be sort of back in the, I've had a good day at work and I'm still all nicely awake and stuff. So yeah, but it's been a busy week of sleeping.
I need more sleep, but I have been not sleeping. I like even this morning, I woke up at so I went to bed at 9. I think I woke up at 2, and because my body was like, okay, you got the 5 hours that you needed. I'm like, no, stay asleep. And someone scanned the QR code. Look at that. This little thing right here.
Oh, yeah. Do it again.
Do it again. So no, I woke up at 2 and said, nope, not happening. And then I woke back up at 4, no. And then I ended up waking up at 5:30. So I've been awake for a while, but
you got your nighttime going to bed routine sorted out?
I do, for the most part.
And is it, so I got given some advice, in fact, off a couple of people, and having to do the whole, so set a time, go and have as hot a shower as you can possibly have, because that apparently then you cooling down starts putting your body into that state. So say you want to be in bed by midnight or 10 o'clock, then or 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, you're going to have this super hot shower for as hot as you can stand for as long as you can stand. Then you go, so no caffeine after sort of midday type thing, blah, blah, blah. Then you go and put yourself to bed, but no phones, none of that, and you have to do this religiously. And it works. It really, really works, except I don't stick to it because I keep on doing other things. But that's really recommended.
Yeah, the problem is that every Wednesday messes with my schedule because Disney won't put The Mandalorian out at prime time.
You could just watch it.
No, I can't, because you know what? Push notifications on my phone, no matter how many times I turn them off, I would have been spoiled last week for something that happened at the end of the episode. So I can't.
You could leave your phone somewhere else and not look at it until you've watched it. The next day.
I wake up and get right to work. So it's like, do I
If
put
you're
off
at work all day, then you can not look at it all day and then watch it after you finish work. And just think of that break from social media you'd have had as well. It would do your mental health no end of good. I couldn't do that. There is no way in living memory could I do that.
Oh man! So you're suggesting something that you could not yourself practice. Okay.
I'm a consultant. That's what I do for it.
Okay. Yes. All right. Okay. Fine. Got it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. Gotcha.
Go to the doctor, get checkups, all that stuff.
Oh, I do that. Do you not do that?
No, can't be bothered.
Should really do it. You should do that. And that's me telling you that you should do that, and I do that. So I practice what I am suggesting.
Yeah, I really should, but I keep on having to work and stuff.
Yeah,
the irony.
Okay, that sounds like excuses.
That's because it is.
Oh man, back to the show. I want to get back to the show prep stuff, because this is I'm actually really jazzed. I want to keep that energy that we had around our conversation with Camille, because like I'm super excited for the story tonight. I don't know if you could tell, Barry.
No, you kept it very quiet.
Okay, well, yes, I'm very excited for the show. Yeah.
I'm just looking through the
yeah, I am looking through the notes too.
We need to, maybe we need to move the controversial ones right to the top.
I feel like that's, you know what, I definitely like those controversial takes.
Yeah.
We should put them here, huh?
Yeah.
So I did. Well, I mean, like, you can see how this is structured. I have like interesting little tidbits, or just kind of like recaps of the article, and then an overview from a human factors perspective. Talk about the research, but yeah, maybe controversial takes should probably be third. I could live with that. Let's do that, because I like the other ones as where they are. But
yeah, because we don't really want to get into the evaluating the science. I mean,
well, if it was a scientific article, it would, and this is why it's there.
Again, that was the whole sarcasm piece.
Yeah, no, I know. Gotcha. Oh yeah, society and culture. Oh, that's an interesting one.
I mean, this is just going to. Oh, I've just had a thought. This would take revenge porn to a whole new level, wouldn't it?
Oh shit! Yeah,
I didn't think of that. Right, that's got to go in.
All caps, Barry.
Just so we don't forget it.
Just
that'd be terrible, wouldn't
it? It would be. Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, this goes right along the lines of what we were talking about last week, with being able to use AI to generate explicit images of people without their consent, or use their voice without their consent. This would be to use.
I mean, this would only work if you if they got that bit where you could share, like I said, share the memory, so then somebody else can use it. And it's, but again, it's that whole being tied to location, because that's from what the video is, that's my understanding of it, is that you can basically relive the sitting on the sofa holding the baby, which is what the video is.
Right.
But yeah, so that person would have to be in that location to make it happen. But if it was a public place or something like that, then see, this is where I think a lot of the potential benefits, which we'll talk about on my initial reaction, because I've started to put them down. Because if everybody's taking these things, and I want to check see if we've got it in the notes first before I throw stuff out there.
So yeah, I mean, I think while we talk about this story, Barry, we're gonna have to be very careful to distinguish, because there's the article, there's the technology, but then there's also broader implications of like using virtual reality to view these memories as well. There's the piece that, yes, it is tied to the physical location and location mapping, and there's a whole slew of issues there. Like, what if you move the couch? And it's like, are you still going to watch somebody sit there,
That's definitely. So I'm going to use that in part of my reaction, because there's have you ever watched True Blood or read the True Blood books?
No.
Yeah, see, because you haven't got that high sophisticated
Right, that's it.
Readership, then you're going to miss out on a bit of insight I'm going to give you. But because I'm happy to read that highbrow, really intellectual type stuff, then I'll be able to get an insight that nobody else will be able to.
That's fantastic. I'm glad we have that perspective on the show, honestly, because without that,
well, it would all be a waste of time.
Yeah, I absolutely. Oh, Camille just became a patron. Thank you, Camille. Appreciate that.
That's cool. Well done. Thank you very much. Oh, and actually, have you noticed that somebody else in the chat wants to offer promotion of the channel?
Yeah, we're not reading that.
All that sort of stuff. Oh, and they've given us an address to go to. How nice is that? How considerate.
Yeah, don't go to that address. I feel like we should delete that message. Block list. Okay. Oh, okay. So one of my favorite part. Let me just say this. So if you skip over that part in the middle where we have the ad for Patreon and everything, that's fine. I don't blame you. I do that same thing with podcasts. We also, right after that, talk about, an interesting thing going on, way to support the show, that type of thing. Whether it be like, our website or Patreon or merch store. Last week it was the merch store. If you're unaware, what we started doing is these dumb commercial reads. And no, I've intentionally made them dumb. So that's just another piece of charm that we've injected into the show, I guess, because I got tired of just reading off bullets and I wanted to introduce a little bit of variety and reward the people who actually sit through that stuff. So look forward to dumb commercials from us. Maybe I'll have Barry read the one next week. This one's written in first person, so I have to read this one. But maybe I'll have Barry read the next one.
You're just trying to get more out of my appearance fee, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I really am. I'm stretching the dollar of that zero. Wait, I said I'm stretching the value of that zero. Yeah. Did I say stretching the dollar?
Yes.
Yeah. Stretching the value of that zero.
We knew what you meant.
I do. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad that was clear.
I think I've got something for everything now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I'm glad you have something for everything. We are 2 minutes away from show, so
my game from perhaps needs a little bit more work.
Okay,
my first one is probably not as in-depth as it could be.
You refine that, and I'm going to put out one more call for our patrons. If you'd like to jump in and talk with us in the post show, please do. We will be here for you. And happy to entertain any thoughts, musings, questions, comments, concerns you might have. This is Patreon exclusive. So jump into our Patreon channel on our Discord. You got a link there for you. Jump right in, and then we'll get you on. With that, Barry, any famous last words before we start the show?
My light's gone out. That's my famous last word. But I'll sort that once the advert goes.
Okay. Well, let's. Well, it's not an advert. It's an intro. Difference.
That's what I called it.
Difference.
Yeah.
All right,
bye.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Oh, yes. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 276. We're recording this episode live on March 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Great to see you here, Nick. How are you doing?
Well, the time change has clearly got me all mixed up. I don't even know what date it is. I'm good. I'm good. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about a VR startup working on technology to replay memories. Later, we'll answer some questions from the community on topics like, what would you do if you were me? Research roadmap, tool, and template, and how to deal with stakeholders who don't understand qualitative research. But first, got some programming notes and community updates here. I just want to re-mention while we're on the show here, Patreon access to the pre and post show is now live, I guess. So it's a dial-in feature. Dial in, give us your thoughts. You can also access our show notes. We're posting all this in our Patreon channel on our Discord. So if you are a Patreon, just $1 gets you in the door, and you can call in and say whatever profanity you want. We'll just turn you right off. So there's that. There's also, I want to mention this. I should have led with this, honestly. There's an exciting announcement coming from us and a partner of ours. It's a little tease. If you're at Healthcare Symposium later this month, you might see it there, but we'll be sure to let you all know about the latest a little bit later this month. I just wanted to throw out a little tease there. But Barry, what's the latest over at 1202?
Well, at 12:02, we have live the interview with Martin Bromley, who talks about his experiences and how he formed the Clinical Human Factors Group. But coming on Monday is my interview with Jenny Radcliffe, the people hacker. She's the host of Human Factors Security podcast. She's a TEDx and keynote speaker, as well as self-professed ethical burglar. So she gets to talk to me. She talked to me around how she got into ethical hacking, ethical burgling, as well as her new book that is just out and well worth a read because I've got actually a paperback copy of it. Sorry, hardback, but actual physical book I've got, and I don't get them very often, and it's just a delight to read it.
Oh, the other Human Factors podcast that comes up when you search for Human Factors podcast. I love it. I can't wait to hear it. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into the news? That's why you're all here. All right. It's Human Factors News. Barry, what's the story this week?
So this week we're talking about a VR startup working on tech to replay memories. So a virtual startup called Wist Labs has developed software that allows users to replay their memories over a specific real-life locations via augmented reality. The process requires regular videos taken on a smartphone to be turned into a 3D representation using an app, which can then be played back via a web browser, smartphone, or virtual reality headset. Depth is captured using the LiDAR sensors on particular Apple devices. Although this concept sounds exciting to many people, it's also raised a bunch of concerns. Many are uncomfortable with the dystopian Black Mirror-like idea of playing back recorded memories. However, unlike the science fiction examples it's been compared to, users of the VR software developed by Wist Labs currently retain control over the memories they record. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on being able to relive the most embarrassing moments you wish history would just forget in full time Technicolor?
Oh yeah, I could relive plenty of those. Look, I think this is cool in theory. And if you look at the video, there's a video that goes along with this article. Wist Labs has posted a video that kind of explains the concept. There's definitely some good memories I'd like to relive as well. This might actually, technology like this might actually encourage me to engage and document more of my history if I could relive it later. And if you think about what it could do, though, just high level, this could be really dangerous to live in the past if you are not present. And I can imagine this can be really painful or unhealthy for those healing from loss. It's like a callback to an earlier episode that we did about talking to dead people and the whole grieving process of bringing them to life via AI. That was episode 263. That kind of reminds me of what this is. Both of them Black Mirror technologies. And generally, I think that there's a lot more that we can dig into. And one of the reasons why I selected this story as a top story that we could talk about that goes beyond this specific application of projecting a memory onto a AR mapped location. Barry, I am curious, before we go into a deep dive, what your thoughts on this are.
So I guess on the face of it, on the article as it's given, as you just read out, then why not? But I'd also then question why. It's the sort of thing that it's a neat idea, but I don't know whether it actually truly lives out to something that I would really, really want to see. As the article says, it is very much a Black Mirror type thing. Or for those of you who read truly highly classy books, if you read True Blood, then there is a particular murder and some spells that are cast to relive that murder and worked out how the murder actually happened. And so again, it's a similar type of principle, just with less vampires and less werewolves. But then it starts then ticking a load of questions for me if we start extending what happens, because at the moment, yes, it says that the whoever creates them retains the retains the power over them. But how long will that last? How long before people start either hacking them or whatever happens to basically you lose the privacy around it? But actually, there could be some really cool stuff as well. If we then start sharing some of these things, could you augment many different people's memories together to create a full perspective picture over what goes on? Could you share memories in order to enhance your own memory and things like that? And then you get back into, well, okay, you start doing that. Well, then how does that get abused? People could abuse it, but also the state could start abusing it. Could they start abusing your memories for whatever reason? I mean, possibly thin end of a wedge starts with the with meaningful things, like the police want to recreate a terrible accident or a murder or something like that, and everybody will give over their memories for the right reasons. But then is that just a thin end of a wedge? So with that in mind, where should we take the conversation to look at this in a bit more detail?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's like I want to caveat this discussion that as we talk to memories, what we're really saying is videos on our phone,
Yeah,
right? Because I mean, let's just break down one more time how this tech works and how it's expected to work before we start going off into fantasy land. So what this is actually doing is you've taken some video using your phone, a camera, some device that captures input. And what happens then is it uses environmental contextual cues and even the LiDAR sensors that are present on like the pro models of iPhones to capture that depth perception. I'm imagining there's some AI in play here that will map it appropriately, that will calculate that depth appropriately and interpolate, um, positioning of objects in that memory, in that video.
Mhm.
And that is what we're calling a memory. Basically, what this technology allows us to do is overlay those videos, those memories, onto physical locations that were present. So there's a video that accompanies this article. It's a tweet by Wist, and what it shows is basically a woman holding a baby on a couch, and the perspective is somebody standing up away from the couch with the projected memory of the woman with the baby on the couch, and the couch is empty otherwise. So that is what we're looking at here, just from a conceptual standpoint. I think the real danger with this technology comes when you start doing the yes and. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, AR and VR. Okay, well now you need to not only recreate that slice of the environment that this was taken on, but you need to start recreating the entire environment around it. And what happens there? Well, you're starting to interpolate. You're starting to put in other details that were not there.
Yes.
And this has a really unique, interesting effect on how we might start to rewrite our own memories, where if there are details present in these memories that we're revisiting that were not there, that were not present when we initially experienced those memories, then we are going to start rewiring our brains to think about these memories in a way that has those additional details that weren't there before. Camille Paris was on the pre-show with us. She actually stopped by, talked a little bit about her perspective, and one thing that she brought up was this eyewitness memory. Or she was talking about memory just in general and how it's fallible and how we sort of rewrite it. And we were talking, and eyewitness memory came up, and this is one thing that is so unreliable in a court system because you are relying on the details of somebody who has relived that moment. And Camille brought up these flashpoint memories where they are very strong stimuli that are brought on by some traumatic or some centralizing event, right? So the examples that she brought up was like JFK, 9/11 would be another one, Challenger would be another one. These types of memories that a lot of people have a collective idea of, yes, I am positive I remember exactly everything about that day, but then they aren't necessarily accurate because there's either video or something else that proves that otherwise. So it's just a very interesting connection with memory and where it could go if we start doing the yes and VR, yes and what
But
else?
even the point you highlight there is really interesting, isn't it? Because our memories are, as we know, and as you just highlighted, are not actually probably a true representation of what really happened. They're our own created version of what happened, whether we like it or not. And so if you're actually confronted with, if you've got a memory of a situation, like say you're a mother holding your child, or you're a father seeing the mother hold the child on the sofa, and you maybe have your memory of how that happened, to then watch that memory again in full technical 3D Technicolor, and it isn't how you remember it being. Well, does that just devalue the memory that you've had? What is that going to jar you in some way? Where's the value in that to yourself? Are memories just actually something that lives in your head? Which is better than in some cases. I mean, a lot of the things I think we're talking about, you could equally get as much, but you would get as much value out of, and have all the associated issues we've just been talking about with just straight up video. But I think one of the things the video does, the video that does show the example of this, is the person could reach out with their virtual hand and perhaps stroke the face of the mother, as it were, which is, I think, one of the things that they did. So it's about whether you could get more out of that sort of interaction than you would normally.
Right. Well, let's talk about that specific interaction there, because to me, what if? Okay, so that's a happy memory, right?
It is.
Mother with a child. It's like, okay, very cute. What if that then becomes a sad memory because this person viewing that memory has lost one of them or something terrible? Is that going to be good news for that person long term from an emotional health, mental health, well-being type of perspective? I don't know if it is, in the sense that if they keep revisiting that memory and try to live their lives in the past, it can become a very dangerous, slippery slope that you're on, where literally everything projected in your, they say get rid of everything that reminds you of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe keep one or two sentimental things, but get rid of everything else. And I think that's sound advice for good reason, because we found that the healing process requires us to go through that, to not forget about them, but to remember them fondly and to focus on the good times and all that stuff. And so if you're living on those good times, because you can actually relive those moments via an AR program or VR program, then I don't think that has good long lasting implications for mental health.
And there could be even worse examples of that if you've been involved in an accident, or something else, like you perhaps been attacked or something like that, and there is video evidence of that. Again, you could easily sink into that, reliving that moment time and time and time again. Another example is if something happened and you could have done something to avoid it.
Oof.
And you relive that to try and work out if you could have done something differently. So you're right, there is significant.
I do enough of that in my head. Why do we need to?
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's that thing, isn't it? And if you're watching it and then watching not the bit that so maybe it's a car accident, and you've got like the equivalent of the dash cam, and you're watching yourself, your own actions, and think, oh, actually, if I just pressed the brake a moment sooner, or swerved left instead of right, or something like that, or seen this thing, you could just end up reliving a nightmare over and over and over again because you wouldn't put it down. That could be very, very difficult. But saying that, you could do that just with a video as well. So
you could. I was thinking of a more lighthearted example of saying something stupid on a podcast and then going, no, don't say that thing, and then they say the thing. So
I'm guaranteed to say the thing. So yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this because you wrote it in all caps here. Do you want to talk about this point, because you're talking about painful memories, and I think this kind of goes along that lines. I just want to call out that Barry has written this in all caps in the show notes.
Well, I think it is because it's something that's fairly topical in terms of the news here, certainly here in the UK, because there's been a few cases around it. But we've all heard about revenge porn, where you might have had a video that you've taken in intimacy with a partner, and then suddenly you find they've distributed it all over the internet to your friends, or that type of thing. This could be the next step in that, going either just with what you've got already, but also then talking, going with the example you gave earlier, if it was then translated to virtual reality and things like that, and it was you then get a whole new level of basically abuse of the videos that you've done. So it would take revenge porn to a whole new level that would just be really quite distressing.
Yeah, I mean, not just revenge porn, but any intimate memories, right? I mean, if you think about them being used as blackmail or some sort of manipulation, with basically any type of coercion happening that would threaten to release those publicly, those sensitive memories publicly, and say, like, hey, we had a really heartfelt heart to heart talk, and there were some things said in that maybe paints somebody in an unfavorable light or something, and somebody else owns that memory, quote unquote memory. It's just a video on your phone that exists today, but if somebody could relive that in VR, then there's all these other. The interesting thing here is that there's not just sight, I guess. In VR, there's proprioception as well, so you get to see the relation of something to something else. And again, we talked a little bit about the interpolation of details, what actually happens from the system perspective to fill in these gaps of knowledge based on what was happening in the environment, right? There's innocuous ones like, okay, I turn my head and the camera doesn't have the data from this side of my head, but it's captured that side of my head with other, it's captured my head and it knows what it looks like. So it can go ahead and paint that there. But what about the spider on the wall that it can't see? What about what about the cats walking around in the background that it can't see? And so I think when you start to interpolate all those details, when you start to fill in things that may or may not exist, you might actually start to see the decline when it comes to the way in which we tell our stories. Because if we're reliving these things with details interpolated, we're going to go off of those details as we rewatch them. It will recode our memories to omit details. And so it's not a true memory, although we do this already. This is a process that we already engage in. As we relive a memory, we are already rewriting that. But the danger comes from, I guess, technology altering that process a little bit, because it is then introducing things that may or may not have been there. And your mind can't accurately parse that information because it takes it as fact when maybe it wasn't.
Yeah. And then I guess looking at it at a more simplistic level as well. What happens if somebody moves the sofa?
Yeah.
With the example, if the mother sat on the sofa with the child, you move the sofa, and that just then looks completely different. Or the curtains are open, you've closed the curtains, or something like that. So that can also probably have it, or it might be jarring. But we probably focused on the negative quite a lot here about how there's got to be some positive use for this, rather than, as well as just seeing some cool memories. But you sort of highlighted it here about some therapeutic applications. I mean, we talked about the bad reliving of memories. But what about the good reliving of memories? It could be as simple as for maybe for meditation and things like that. Some reliving some good experiences in your life. That time when you won the award for best podcast ever in the world. And
that was a fabricated memory. It was not.
Oh, right. Okay. It's probably one that's coming. But you know what I mean? Them sort of memories and allow you to watch back. You can watch back your graduation. You can watch back, and all them sort of things. So there's got to be some of these really positive aspects of being able to do something in near real life, I guess.
I hate to be the downer because you're bringing up some good points. Yeah, it'd be great to relive these, and I think everything that's true in moderation, because there's also the potential for addiction. Some people might become addicted to reliving these past experiences, and again, I'm talking about living in the present versus living in the past. If they're reliving these past experiences and just reliving their glory days of being a high school football player, then where are you now? What are you doing now? That's kind of the danger. But you're absolutely right. Let's talk about the positive. There are some really positive things that can come out of this. You said reliving your memories. If you're not too indulgent or reliant on them to where you can still function in your everyday life, that is great. Let's talk about another application. Therapy. Can you imagine walking through a painful memory alongside your therapist, pointing out things that were happening that maybe you can't see because you have a very certain perspective about what happened? That might, I think, be a very healthy thing if you were to walk through it with a mental health professional who can walk you through these things and point out some of the parts. You could have pressed that brake, but if you look, you didn't have the same level of awareness that you have now. You wouldn't have made that choice if you played this 50 times. So maybe being able to go through something like that.
What you've just described there is the Vulcan mind meld. You're basically saying this is a Spock type device.
Oh man, Chris Reed would be happy, I think, that we're making a Star Trek reference on the show. I'm a Star Wars guy, so I'm imagining a mind meld is kind of just like making sure everything is communicating.
So the Vulcans can go across with your mind, and therefore you share your experiences, and you can walk through them together.
Gotcha.
That's kind of what we just described, which is why Star Trek is clearly better than Star Wars. Anyway, moving on.
Let's not have that debate. That'll be 2-hour-long podcast, at least.
Yes.
So there's some other points that we could make with this, right? And I think I kind of alluded to it with the addiction piece. What does this mean for society? If we have a society that is then looking at these memories, just if you think about not making this technology, but let's say this technology becomes pervasive in a way where there's this over-reliance on the need for or the way in which we think about memory retention. And so thinking about these problems, these memories from I got to share with you this memory, but really it's just a video. Okay, you share a video, but it's the way I remember it because it's encoded in my head that way. And therefore, there might be this increased reliance when it comes to this type of thing from a societal perspective. You could also look at this from, I guess, the societal perspective as well, the social isolation piece. Again, if you have somebody who's addicted to reliving these past experiences, that might infringe on their personal, I guess, lives, the social interaction piece, making us all less social.
Well, I'm going to throw something out there in terms of the society and culture and say, actually, the impact of doing this with people on their mobile phones and doing stuff that way is no better nor worse than video, right? Because all this sort of stuff you can do with video. What happens if you use it on CCTV?
Okay, so you are no longer taking the perspective of the person recording it, but now you're looking at
3D augmentation from CCTV cameras, and you can recreate anything in any community space.
Okay, well, that is cool, Uh, I I had a time where CCTV determined that I was not at fault for an accident that I got into, and I would love to relive that moment just to see what it looked like from that camera. I never got to see it, but it saved me from getting, from being liable. That would be cool because then you could start to, and I know technology like this is existing currently, where in forensics you have multi sources sort of painting a
Yeah.
three-dimensional thing. They've done this a lot with like January 6th, where you have a lot of different sources of information and they are painting a 3D picture of what is happening at all times. And so imagining being able to plot yourself anywhere there's data and understanding what's going on at that point in time would be kind of cool and kind of interesting, especially from a historian's perspective, because you are opening up a lot more information to folks, to historians specifically, right? Imagine like no one's noticed this before. There was somebody sitting down through all this and nobody noticed them sitting there in that corner.
Because one of the biggest problems with CCTV coverage, both live and aftermath, is you're looking at a bank of screens and trying to, and particularly we've seen store security, for example, or shopping mall security. They're looking at banks of tens to hundreds of screens, and so having to piece together some stuff like that. Now, if you could do that, augment them all together with their cool lidar stuff, so you're sat there with a pair of glasses on and you can interact with that thing live. Now that would be very cool. But even after the fact, something's happened and you can recreate that stuff easily. So not just having to piece it together as you just described, but actually you just flip on the headset and you then interact with all of that together. That would be a real, really cool use of that sort of technology that I could see have some real positive benefits.
As long as we're talking about real cool uses of this technology, can you imagine taking that, but then being able to replay that in a scenario where you're looking at like a piece of media, right? Let's say somebody has um, a like a local news reporting of an incident that happened and there was footage, right? The local news media cameraman could literally pan over and then have that memory, that video overlaid on what happened, mapped appropriately, kind of like they do in football games, American football games, where they map on the UI elements of the football
Yeah,
field.
yeah.
It could happen very similarly for other broadcast and like documentaries, being able to go to a location and stitch these things together as something were to happen. That would be really impressive technology and a good way to use that technology for storytelling purposes. So I think, especially if you think about like documentaries about your favorite individuals or whatever, right? They tell the Barry Kirby story, and in it, Barry shows all his memories on his phone, where he's talking with his
Let's not do
dearly
that.
beloved at dinner about human factors, and is secretly recording it for Patreon bonus content, which hasn't happened, by the way, but I'm pushing for it. And
Not yet.
so so you have these memories, and then they can overlay them with at the locations that they actually happened, and that might be kind of cool.
So rather than just talking about the how cool or uncool this is, should we talk about some of the human factors aspects about this? So one of the biggest issues I think there's going to be is if they don't get it quite right. So it isn't either captured in high enough fidelity or we can't stream properly. You're gonna get that whole you've got to be able to get immersed in it for it to get the value. And so if it's just off, if it's really off, actually we can deal with that a lot better for some reason. But actually in if it's just off, then you're going to hit that uncanny valley piece, aren't you? Where it's just off, therefore you just rubbish it because it's just not quite right.
Right.
You're not going to be able to get immersed in it. So the engineering behind this is going to be really quite important, because if you don't get the engineering spot on, then we just won't be able to use it. In fact, the ability for then to induce like sim sickness and that sort of thing, because your brain's just going to start rejecting what it's seeing, is probably quite high. So yeah, I
Yeah.
thought just throw that out there.
Well, let's talk about another human factors application here, training. Training is another big one where you can imagine that in a training course, you can replay a memory in augmented reality and get a different perspective on how you approached a situation. So that way you get personalized feedback in sort of a 3D environment, right? So imagine a surgeon in training makes a mistake on a cadaver, and they're able to go back and look at that from sort of a recording perspective of what went wrong, so they can then self-diagnose what happened in that moment and understand better what their error was. So that might be a good way to train. You could also replay memories of other successful times that something went right. Where take the take the aviation domain, where somebody is landing a plane, um, or some landing a plane without a tail, and they have a lot of things going on that they need to manage, and there's cockpit recording of it, that you can get that bird's eye view of what's going on in the cockpit, and you can actually look at their thought process, almost see it live as they're manipulating all the controls. So that's another way I think that training could be impacted by this, right?
That's true. And it would be interesting to, not only training, but that's that mission rehearsal piece, isn't it? It's that
Mhm.
whole seeing, or the almost the mentoring piece, where you've got either your own memory or somebody else's memory there that's recorded, it's overlaid on you, so you can see what you're supposed to be doing, um, given a certain circumstance. So that could have a huge cost benefit, um, both in a training perspective, but also in a potential disaster scenario, or potential malfunction or whatever. So yeah, there could be a huge amount of benefit there.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, there's other human factors applications. Those are the big ones. Another one that I want to bring up kind of is the cybersecurity aspect of this. You can imagine that there could potentially be. We talked about it a little bit with the revenge porn and with like the other uh, uh, extortion of somebody else because of these sensitive memories. But what if those were accessed without your permission?
Mhm.
The one of the points of this article is that you have control over what memories um, they can record and access. But what if a malicious actor came into that system and started accessing those without your permission? So you could get all those memories and replay them. And not only that, but there's other cybersecurity implications. That's just the opening of the well, because then you can let's say the memory has your Wi-Fi password written on your wall, and then somebody now has access to your Wi-Fi. It's mapped to a physical location. That physical location data is probably stored with the video, with the memory. So now you have a place and time of recording and a physical location data of where that was taken. And so now, if you were trying to break into somebody's home, you know what the locks look like on the other side. You know X, Y, and Z about their living space, depending on how long something was taken. So, I mean, there's that aspect of it too. Cybersecurity is another really big um, concern with this, because I imagine there's not just cyber criminals breaking into systems, but then there's also the human piece of sharing information without knowing what pieces of information are in there.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Really interesting pieces. I don't know.
well, the whole cyber piece was interesting because you sparked off two thoughts. Firstly, is around dementia, and for dementia patients, being able to have that ability to replay stuff that they've forgotten, and therefore resparking
Yeah.
memories that they make. So that's a really cool use. But then your thing about cyber really said, right, so if I've got amnesia and got my phone and I wanted to try and reboot we could use that to do that, which would be a cool thing. However, if I was some sort of malicious actor and therefore wanted to implant false memories, I've seen the movies. This clearly happens.
Yeah.
But I mean that is a almost a legitimate way of that happening. You don't remember the event. This is telling you that this is what happened. Oh, it must have been then. And going back to the whole, car accident, that type of thing. If while you are submitting this video or whatever as part of your evidence of what happened, if somebody is able to go into that and manipulate that before it gets to under sealed evidence, then again, which I guess again my argument goes back to, that could just happen with a video as well. But if this is because the way it's generated actually opens it up to, it's more vulnerable to manipulation because there is an element of generation around it, then that's also something else we would have to consider. Not insolvable, but have to consider.
Yeah. Do you have any other last thoughts on this article, Barry, before we move on?
I think I kind of just go back to my initial reaction of, yeah, why not? But really, why? I think it's cool, and the people who've listened to me go on about tech. There's some tech I think is really cool, and it's probably completely pointless, but I think is really cool. This, I'm just kind of think, yeah, all right, but I don't, considering what you can do with the video, I don't truly see what it gives me. So I guess it would have to, it's probably one of these things. It's going to be a stepping stone. It's a good starting point for something, but why? What about you, Nick? What's your final thoughts?
A couple key takeaways here. I just wonder what this could potentially do for education if you have immersive learning experiences, reliving some of these critical historical events. Using these things could be a really interesting way to communicate what happened to those learning about that event. And then also just the larger social aspect of this. As a social psychologist, classically trained, right? I am really interested in how society would react to basically having this technology and what this means for memory and recall when it comes to some of these events, and what that means for interactions with others, what that means for interactions with technology, what that means for human behavior in general, and the way that we regulate our emotions. It's all very interesting to me, just opening up cans of worms like I normally do. But I just want to thank our Patreons this week and everybody else who selected our topic. And thank you to our friends over at Futurism for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post links to all the original articles and our weekly roundups in our blog. And also join us on Discord for more discussion of these stories and much more. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to read a dumb commercial right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors. A huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patron, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly keep the lights on over here and allow us to do dumb commercials like this. Hello there, wonderful listeners. It's me, your favorite podcast host, Nick Roome, and your resident handsome devil, handsome Mr. Barry Kirby. Today, I'm going to talk to you about our website. Yes, that's right. We have a website. It's the place where all sorts of fun stuff happens. But wait, there's more. We have a detailed show notes and links to our amazing guests who were kind enough to spend their valuable time with us. And for those who like to watch us as well as listen, we have embedded YouTube videos so you can gaze upon our striking good looks. There you go, Barry. Good job taking the cues. But that's not all. We have news roundups. Yes, you heard me right, news roundups. You'll never fall behind on current events if you keep up with us weekly or monthly. We go into the nitty gritty, give you all the juicy details, along with all the additional info on our guests, I guess. Do you have a story to tell? Well, guess what? We accept submissions from our valued listeners. You can share your own stories with us, and if we like it, we might even feature you on our show. There's cues in here to tell me to smile. And if it's been a minute since you checked out our website, what are you waiting for? You'll find everything you need, from searchable episodes to conference recaps. Who knows? You might even learn something new. So there you have it, folks. Our website is the holy grail of all things handsome Mr. Barry Kirby and fantastic Nick Roome podcast content. Don't be shy. Go check us out at humanfactorscast.media. Thank you and good night. Here we go with the next part of the show.
It came from.
Definitely having you read that next week. All right, let's switch gears and get into It Came From. This is part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. You find any of these answers useful, helpful, give us a like wherever you're watching or listening to help other people find this content. Yeah, Barry's just pointing out that it says exit with a dance move. I did not do that. All right, this first one up here tonight is from user Sania from the UX research subreddit. What would you do if you were me? As a UX research apprentice with 8 months of experience and planning to earn a bachelor's degree, I want to ensure that I am making myself an attractive applicant for future career opportunities. What skills should I focus on outside of my degree to be more competent in research? What does career growth look like for a UX researcher? How can I get myself set up for a fulfilling career doing meaningful work with the knowledge I have now? Barry.
So for me, firstly, is focusing on doing, you're doing your apprenticeship, focus on doing that well and doing your degree well. But if you're looking for a slight curveball into what else is useful, basically talking to people is really, really useful. There's skills to be able to engage with people or who might be slightly difficult or might have their own agendas. The ability to get under basically not under their skin, but under the wrapper of what they are to get that elusive information is really good. So you could consider things like doing a public speaking type courses or things like that, or maybe even drama and that type of thing. Things that allow you to give you confidence to go and talk to individuals and groups of people, particularly in maybe environments that you might not feel too comfortable yourself. So as a bit of a curveball, and that's not on anybody's on anybody's hit list of things to do, but I think that's, if you've got that core skill about being able to talk to people, then you'll make a great UX researcher. Nick, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. And I think there's, something to be said about getting experience in tangentially related skill sets or domains. I'm going to extend that to domains. If you find an internship or some opportunity to work in a domain that interests you, that may or may not be in your career path, go and explore that, because then you can know before you even get into that domain whether or not it's something that you want to continue exploring. And that goes even broader than that. Get practical experience doing things. Collaborate with local community members and companies and businesses on projects that you might be able to offer your services pro bono, actually getting that work in, or seek out academic research labs or just research labs in general. Hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Human Factors Cast has one, but look at that. I mean, you get that experience in a lab setting, learning about process and procedure for how to do something, and that can help you out too. So there's a lot of different ways, but I think the bottom line: get involved, get experience outside of the classroom. That'd be my 2 cents there. All right. This next one up here is Research Roadmap Tool or Template by user Jammers9787 on the UX Research subreddit. Do you have any tool suggestions for creating a research roadmap? How can I map out the recommendations for future stakeholder workshops, surveys, live interviews, and concept testing that need to be done in a specific order? My goal is to inform resource allocation. Barry, how do you map out research?
Where's that it depends button? Because we're going to need it. For me, it really does depend. It depends on and just to map it out. Hey, see what I did there? On the granularity of what you're doing, and whether you want it to be more of a rich picture or you want it to be very formulaic, whether it's more of a project plan or it's something that you're trying to show, you're trying to present to your end customer to sort of show, or maybe even like a senior manager on something that is going to be really quite cool. Also, how often do you need to update it? If it's something that's just a one-off, then maybe it's going to be part of a project proposal and it wants to look quite cool. Then that's they're all factors that play into the different tools. There's loads of different tools out there, and without stealing what I think Nick's probably going to say, find out tools that you're comfortable with using. And if you're going to go with different teams at different times, then just get a broad variety under your belt. I wouldn't stick with one because you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Each different tool has different pros and cons to it. Nick, what do you think?
Thank you for not stealing that. But basically, my advice here: use the tool that everyone else on your team is using, especially if you are planning to communicate this externally to other teams. If you're just doing this to monitor it yourself, just make a Google Sheets or Excel document. It doesn't matter for you. You can keep track of that. But if your team is using a piece of software like Jira, like Asana, like Teams, or any other piece of technology that allows you to track, what are some of the other ones? Monday. It doesn't matter the tool. Like Barry said, you're going to need to learn new tools all the time. So being able to adapt and be flexible. And I recommend using the same tool that whatever your product team is using. So that way you can point that research to the things that the product is developing. And that goes for software development. That goes outside of software development too. Use whatever everyone else is. That's my advice. All right, let's get to this last one here. Anyone dealing with stakeholders that don't understand qualitative research? This is by Desperate Desk 9949 on UX Research subreddit. I feel like some of these names are made up. As a researcher, how can I educate a stakeholder about a value of exploratory qualitative research when they have a scientific background and prefer research that produces numbers? I've tried to involve them in the planning process and create formal plans for the research, but they still don't seem to understand the importance of this type of research. Any advice on how to educate them quickly and effectively? Barry, how do you do this?
Well, short of a baseball bat, it's translate and teach really. So you've got to show them the value, and the only way that you really get across problems like this is by giving them that mic drop moment of when you can show them a bit of insight and that they couldn't have got through just looking at numbers. There's different ways of doing that, and sometimes you just might not get there. They might be so stuck into what they're doing that they're just not interested. If they're just not interested, then I guess you won't need to take a step back and think about or get them to articulate why they think their numbers are more important than what you're giving them. Looking at the balance of both sides and getting that sort of feedback. So it's a lot of it depends. It's a lot of talk to them. It's a lot of translating what they think they want out of stuff. If you've got something that can give the mic drop moment, then that's brilliant. That will get them over the edge because you're showing value, and that's really what. If you can prove value in what you're doing, then you win. And actually, you could almost argue if you can't show value, then now you're doing the right thing anyway. Nick, have you got anything better to?
No, I think that's right, and I think the important piece about what you were saying is showing it in a successful context. If you can show how this has led to other things like persona development or journey mapping and really pulling out that qualitative data and showing them what you do with that data, I think that is probably the most important piece. The other way that you can start to look at this information is to quantify the qualitative in an effort to communicate with this person, these stakeholders.
Mhm.
So what I mean by that is mark off how many times this comment was brought up across all your people, do a sentiment analysis. There were X amount of comments that were positive and X amount of comments that were negative. They like to see those numbers. Engineers and product managers tend to think in numbers sometimes. So if you can put a qualitative value to a number, sometimes that is more effective at communicating exactly what it is that you are trying to communicate than the raw quote itself. So I don't know. That's the approach that I like to take, is quantifying those numbers or quantifying those quotes. And I think it works out pretty well. Okay. Well, that was fun. Now it's time for one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So my one more thing is a series that I just binge watched, and it's called Outlast, and it's about 16, 17 people in class lone wolves that are dropped in Alaska and in the Alaskan wilderness, and they've got to last for as long as they can, last longer than anybody else. So it's a survival program, but there's a couple of key tweaks to it. One is that you cannot win on your own; you have to be part of a team. And so they start off, so they all go in and they get split into 4 teams. And so you can go from one team to another and all this sort of stuff. But it's when you get into it, and it's 8 episodes long, and it's on Netflix. So it was just so interesting. It's brutal. It is, but not for any reasons of survival as such. Humanity is brutal. The way that we can bully and you sort of want to get there and not see the bullies win out, and I won't spoil it as to what happens, but you are sitting there just going, "Oh my god!" And I had to binge. I've sort of put what when you're flicking through Netflix and going, "I'm just going to watch whatever's on there just because it's in the background," and absolutely hooked,
Wow.
all in 2 days, nailed a lot of it.
Dang.
Which has then led us on to, which was started just before coming to the show tonight, was another one where it is another survival one, but it's for a bunch of was it Snowflake Camp, where they've got I think it's like 8 or 10 kids whose parents are just sick, and they're so they won't do any work. They're all about their looks, and they're spoiled kids basically. And so we've literally just started watching that. It's almost like almost like the antithesis of this other one, where you haven't got survivalists, you've got kids who just don't know how to survive, and they're going to learn and become better people because of it. And I hope that's what we get to. But Outlast, I'd recommend going to watching from a psychology perspective. Absolutely fascinating.
You know what?
I want to throw stuff at the telly as well.
I did have one more thing, but I'm going to switch it after hearing your analysis of Outlast, because I also have a Netflix program that I'd like to talk about, which is Perfect Match. Have you heard of this one? It's a survival game, but for love. And so okay, look. So Netflix has all these terrible reality shows, right? With it, that like Love Is Blind, and The Circle, and what's the other one? The Mole was another one. So this is basically like their Avengers Endgame, where everybody gets together in this one house trying to find love, trying to find their perfect match, right? And so the way that it's done is so interesting, and I would change a lot about the design of how they do it, but basically they put 5 members of one gender and then 5 members of another gender in this home, and they have to pair up for the night, and whoever doesn't get paired up for the night leaves. And then there's all this like mingling that just feels like weird and gross, as like people are just trying to latch onto something, and so like it's completely artificial and totally bogus, but it's fun to watch. People are terrible, and that just your Outlast reminded me that people are terrible. In fact, there's a few select individuals on that program that are just really, I just hate watching them, and wanted them to leave the entire time. So not going to spoil how that goes. But anyway, that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion about terrible Netflix shows, no, not that one. That's when I talk to Barry. If you enjoy this episode, enjoy some of the discussion about this technology, this Black Mirror technology, I'll encourage you all to go listen to episode 263, where Heidi and I sat down to talk about talking to dead people and how that's about to get real. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. for more in-depth discussion, you can join us on our Discord community, visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple ways that you can do that. One, wherever you're watching or listening right now, you can give us a 5-star review. That is free for you to do, really helps us out. Two, you could always tell your friends about the show. Word of mouth is the number one way in which we grow. So that's our kind of preferred method. If you want to support the show, do that. Three, if you have the financial means to and want to support us, you can do that on Patreon. Just $1 gets you in the door for a ton of stuff. I'm telling you, the value of $1 goes so far with Patreon. And of course, there's other tiers depending on what your availability is. All right. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on our show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about watching terrible Netflix shows?
Oh, I'm always available on Twitter, Facebook, and all the socials, and legend of Baz_K. If you want to come and also talk to interesting individuals and personalities within the human factors domain, come and go to 1202podcast.com for the 1202 Human Factors podcast, where I interview loads and loads of different people about loads of different things. And you can also now find the 1202 socials on Instagram, TikTok, and all that sort of stuff, where we're throwing out loads of different types of content and shorts from the interviews that we've been doing.
Excellent. As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Good show. I actually really enjoyed that conversation.
Good stuff. Oh, I was just right towards the end of that. You were starting to spike, and I was like, "No, just hold in there. Just hold in there. You can do it. It can be fine."
Like how close to the end?
It was when you start just reading the bit out.
No one listens
It's
to
the
that
outro
anyway.
bit. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's a bit. No, they were just you couldn't read. The audio held up really well. It was just the video was starting to glitch.
Then I'm good. I'm happy. If the audio
Good.
held, I'm good.
That's absolutely.
Oh, how wonderful was that I didn't even have to think about that tonight. And in fact, I forgot that was even an issue the last couple weeks.
Yes. No, it is quite nice when it all, because when I did I've done a couple of interviews this week. I say the one with Jenny that I mentioned, and then I've done another one as well. And Restream is all held together. It's all been good, and it's sort of back to. It feels like it's back to what it used to be in terms of everything hanging together. So, yes, technology seems to be working. And then we're doing a fair bit of stuff as well about trying to get the shorts situation sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
So I found some, because on the platform that we're using at the moment, while we wait for the other one to sort itself out, you're limited to a certain number of minutes. Yes.
Are you still using that? Because I just refuse to use that until their little cut thing is available.
Oh, I think, just what it does at the moment, I think it's fine. It does the job for me. Once the new bit comes available, obviously I'm not paying for it, but it still saves me a lot more time than me actually going in and doing what I was doing, which was taking forever.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
So,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I just haven't had the drive to sit down and do all that. It's a lot. I needed to step back from all that stuff for my own sanity, and I think that some of the technology is very close to being able to allow me to do that without going insane every week and still put out some good stuff. So stay tuned for that from our end, I guess.
Yeah. And this is it. It's about trying new stuff and trying to make it work. And then the other thing that we now doing is my daughter's going to take over all the scheduling and all the social media scheduling and all that sort of stuff. And she presented a plan to me this week. And so we had a meeting, and she showed me her timetable for when things are going to get happened. And every Saturday, everything's going to get scheduled. So she's like, "Dad, you need to have all of your interviews in the bag, uploaded, ready to go, with all of the links that she needs and all that stuff by Saturday morning, so that she can get to it." And I'm like, "Wow, this is going to be efficient." I'm now scared also because it means that somebody else is stepping into my turf, and I'm going to have to do stuff, and we're going to raise our standards, and I'm going to be held accountable. So it's a bit worrying, but also cool at the same time.
You have what I want. I want a manager for our stuff.
It's it's quite. She's going to get hopefully a lot out of it because it's part of her role or she can put it in as basically as part of her work experience while she's doing a degree, and it's terribly useful alongside some of the stuff she's doing. So,
well, if she wants to add another one to her repertoire, let me know. I have another podcast that she can work on.
Well, let's see how she gets on with this, and then
sure,
it might become a new funding stream for her. So, well, it kind of is because I'm paying her to do it. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, we don't have funds over here.
Yeah. It's neither do I, but just don't tell her that yet.
Okay.
But
we're horribly underfunded for a lab with all of our ambition in a podcast that does this on a weekly basis. Just $1 gets you in the door, folks.
Yeah.
Scan the QR code right over here. get you in that door. Yeah, I think. Yeah, technology is exciting. And the one that we're talking about, I hesitate to talk about publicly because we haven't tried it yet, and because it's so hard to talk about this ambiguously, because there are two pieces of software that we are competing against each other right now, one of which we do not have access to, one of which we have used, but some of their key features are down. And so I hesitate to talk about that one until I've had a chance to look at the key features. I hesitate to talk about the other one until I have a chance to experience it and determine whether or not it is a quality product or not. So what these products do are they accelerate our shorts production by quite a significant margin. And so that's what we're talking about here when it becomes a little nebulous. Hey, I just realized we're in the post show. So if any of our patrons are listening, or lab members are welcome too. They can jump in if they have thoughts about tonight's topic, which is, of course, time traveling with AR using videos and memories. So if you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to dial in. I think I'm going to write I think next week I'm going to say, like, dial in here and use the Discord markdown. So it's just a link instead of a scary URL. I don't know.
I've just had my Stream Deck update and trying to work out what's different in it. And I don't like doing updates when we're in the middle of a live stream. That was slightly
yeah,
weird.
that's a great time to do updates.
Oh, but apparently it's going to give me new volume controllers. Oh, I see. Because Elgato have put out a new Stream Deck that has physical knobs on it and stuff, and some graduating things. So, which is clearly just a new gadget to get. But,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to play with them and see where we get. So, it'll be fun. But it hasn't killed everything, so that's all good. In fact, I need to go through and re-rip all of my Stream Deck stuff because I just don't use it in the way that I thought I would. Because all it does is have a bunch of buttons and you press it to launch your PowerPoint or your them applications, and I don't use it very much. I think it could be a lot cleverer. But we'll see. First world problems.
I just had a thought that I want to document for prosperity, because I think so. Okay, Camille was on in our pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
Camille's doing the series on the So What, taking a literally an article out of this book, this journal, bringing in a practitioner and saying, how can we use this? And I just thought, what if HFES put out one of these suckers as a journal that had consolidated information? Researchers could get 2 publications out of one research project, because then you have automatically you have the piece that's in here that researchers and scientists subscribe to, and then you have the other version which people like me, a practitioner, would subscribe to, be like, ooh, what kind of useful stuff is in here? And it's literally just a how to use this thing. Like, and then it's maybe perhaps linked to something else or a companion piece to this. I don't know. I just wanted to document that because I think My goodness, how useful would that be?
Well, there is Susan Kowalski has just published, or she was sharing on LinkedIn, I said just, it was last week or week before, a thing that they've done with I can't remember which group it's with, but a free resource into human factors methods. Oh, I'm going to have to find it now, aren't I, rather than just talking around the...
Yeah, I think you will.
Right, where was the...
Just the ergonomics toolkit?
So it was there. So it was with... Right, let me just put it up before I keep on talking rubbish. With the AIHA, so who were they? Anyway, they've produced the ergonomic assessment toolkit. That's the one. You are right.
Yeah, and here's my problem with that. Here's my problem with that distribution method. Okay, that toolkit is like 73 pages long. Okay, make that an exclusive journal article. Send that out to folks who subscribe to a practitioner's application journal or something, right? And then I look at this and I'm like, oh, it's a toolkit. What's in here? And, organize it in a way that makes sense for the audience. I'm not going to want to look at all this stuff. I'm going to want to look at like something very specific. So I'm looking down I don't do ergonomics, but if I did, choosing a risk assessment tool or tools, that's cool. Let's go to 9, right? And yeah, it's a free thing, but if they got republishing rights or something to distribute as a valuable resource to the human factors community, why not? Oh my God, how useful would that be? To just have a stack of handbooks that you're like, oh no, this one's good. Take this one, keep that one there.
Or rather than a digital or paper journal or something, which is having to pick up and you have to navigate it. Or what about an app? Something that does half this stuff for you and does stuff.
Some sort of searchable AI chat interface.
Yeah. So the interesting bit about that is I was having a chat with Susan and when she pointed me in the direction of this. And what she was saying was, in terms of the grander scheme of things, they wanted to publish something to get out there and to be a resource, which is why it's been shared. It's free for use, and you can't argue with free. There is a fair amount of content in there that is actually quite useful, and I'm going to be sharing it with my team, etc., etc.
Problem is, I didn't know about it.
Exactly. So that's part of what she's sharing it and all that sort of stuff. So how do we push this sort of stuff out there? But also, how do we then expand that? What can we do to then add more content to it? Because this is quite specific for the for this organization, where it came from. I'm trying to remember what it even stands for. What are we talking about? I don't even know what AIHA stands for. Oh, Industrial Hygiene Association. That was the one. That's why it was slightly skewed. So they've done this work. They've got something out there fantastic, and they've got like 8,500 members, which is fantastic. I mean, that's more than HFES. So clearly it's going to get used. Marvelous, brilliant. But what happens when we identify, say, a couple of other methodologies that would be good to go in there? So she is very up for looking at how we expand this, how we do this in a different way. And so this might be a joint HFES, AIHA, CIHF project in the future.
That'd be wonderful.
Well, we'll see. Because I completely agree. It's one of these things about why or how do we share this information so it's not used. The problem with some of this stuff is people develop some really good methodologies and then obviously want to keep them within their own toolkit and lock them down and don't share them. And so unless you've got like books like I have my the handbook, which I believe you just picked up earlier, and things like that. And so this I would happily print out and put in the inside cover, the inside fold of that other book, because it's got some good stuff in there that I would use. But again, we almost need a good website or something that just coalesces all of this stuff together. That is a really good go-to place.
You know, it'd be a great feature of that website, and this is probably me just having my brain in AI, is having a conversational interface that allows us to direct to all these resources. So there's a ton of resources, there's a ton of guides, there's a ton of methods that we can employ as human factors practitioners and as UX people, and it's just like being able to contextualize that and say, here's my situation. Give me a list of methodologies, of toolkits that could potentially address this and allow me to explore. How cool would that be? That would be...
I mean, it would be fantastic to be able to sit there and say, right, I need to measure situational awareness. Bang. You know, you put, simple as that, put in your prompt, go, well, you could use this. But then you can go back and either if the prompt was good enough, then it would question you. But you then go and say, well, actually, I'm really restricted. I can't do internet connectivity because of security reasons, and I can't record anything digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it would then spit you out a whole bunch of stuff you can do with pen and paper. Or equally, it would throw you in it maybe in a different direction. Or what, you know, you have a small user group as opposed to a large user group. What does that give you, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, being able to really push you down the line of actually these are the best ones to use. And the other bit, if AI was going to do it and do it well, it would be able to, because this is one thing I think is missing, is being able to go and look up how well different, say, mental workload measures are out there at the moment, how well they're referenced, but also be able to play off positive versus negative referencing. Because whenever you do, this is what I think is the NASA TLX hole that everybody falls into. If you're doing a mental health if you're doing a mental workload measure on a new system or something like that, particularly with an organization that hasn't done any of this type of stuff before, or it's not been in this application, the one to go to is always NASA TLX because it's the most referenced thing and it's got NASA in the name. How is that not going to work for you? However, there's a lot of criticism around NASA TLX, and half of the references are actually criticizing NASA TLX and how it's used. And I've been in that situation myself. I've used NASA TLX in a situation when really there was nothing else to use, and you have to go for something. And so I plumped for NASA TLX. It probably was the best one I could use at the time, and I had justifications for doing it. But equally, I was criticized for saying, well, you've just gone for that just because it's got a load of references. Like, this was on probability of balance. But if you could have almost an AI that would weight the performance of a particular methodology based on literature, having understood the literature, and therefore can give you an intelligent suggestion, that would be like, you know, take me away, I have my children.
Fine tune a conversational UI that would understand contextually the research, the references that have gone into a methodology, and have it be smart enough to ask you questions about your situation to help you arrive at a decision that will help you pick a methodology that's going to best get you the results that you're looking for. Wow. That is the killer app right there.
And the power of that would be absolutely amazing.
That would be well worth an HFES membership to have access to that app. Like,
whatever. So,
I mean, like, I think that would be justified putting behind a membership for, you know, any of these professional associations. Like, that would be well worth the cost of entry, because that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, you know, absolutely, it would be. So yeah, and why wouldn't you? Because then that would make it truly valuable. One of the biggest issues that we are facing across not just HFES but CIHF membership is largely stagnant. You know, it's not going down, but it's not going up either, not dramatically. Mm-hmm. And we know that, you know, HFES has had a dramatic decline. But then across the world, we've got this problem where, you know, our worldwide memberships across all the different organizations are going down. So we've got to ask ourselves the hard questions of why is that? Why are people not perceiving the value in being a member of a professional membership organization that is catered around what we're doing? And I know a whole bunch of, even in the UK, a whole bunch of practitioners who do what they do and just don't bother becoming a professional member of our professional organization. You sort of like to say, well, why not? Like, well, why do I need to bother? What it's not stopping me from doing what I'm doing, and what value am I getting?
It's the same question you asked about tonight's episode. Why? But why not?
Yeah. I mean, I was like that for I've been a member of CIHF now for 10 years. Must be around 10 years. But I've been a practitioner for best part of 20 years. So prior to me then, biting the bullet and joining, I felt no need to do that before that. So there was clearly no drive to do it because we're in a funny situation as well, where most people will have found a professional organization first, because you tend to stumble into HF rather than go it directly from graduate degree. So certainly in the UK, that's very much the model at the moment. So you're already going to be a member of, as I was. So I'm a chartered engineer. So I'm a member of an engineering institute as well as a member of the CIHF. That's a lot of money to spend on professional membership. So yeah, interesting. So we need to work out how to make that cool thing happen.
That'd be a cool app. Let's make that happen.
And talking about cool things happening, we haven't mentioned ChatGPT properly today.
No, we haven't. That was actually going to be my one more thing until you. Whoa!
What is? Sorry. What are you playing with there?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So hang on. We can talk about ChatGPT in just a second, but there's something really cool that I want to talk about because I've been jazzed about it since I saw a video earlier this week. So Star Wars, Star Trek, we talked about it. Star Wars. These things right over here. This is a lightsaber.
Yes.
Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. It's a weapon of a Jedi Knight.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Plenty of problems with that, by the way. But anyway.
Okay. Well.
And the health and safety issues are quite impressive.
Well, if you're a disciplined magical monk, then it doesn't matter. So look, here's the thing. They have just announced a lightsaber that actually extends and glows like a real lightsaber. Like,
whoa!
So the way it works, and
you're saying that, but I said it extends like a real lightsaber when a lightsaber doesn't actually exist. But
it's a real lightsaber for all intents and purposes. It just does not cut limbs off. Let's put it that way. So the way it works is actually really fascinating and interesting. So it has like this flexible EL illuminated. This is why I have a measuring tape at my desk, because it actually operates just like a measuring tape, where it has this telescoping, push from the inside. It's telescoping inside the lightsaber, and it pushes it up, surrounded by the EL tube, and then it actually, and it's solid because it's a tube inside. You can move it around, and then when you deignite it, it actually goes down like a lightsaber instead of, just having. It's so cool. I'm so excited for it because it's going to be sold out for months.
I was going to say, so how much is something like that going to cost you?
I don't know. It's probably going to be like $250, $300. Worth it. And I told my wife, I was like, as soon as I get one of those, you're going to hear it turning on and off like every 2 seconds in my office. I'm just.
So have you been to Jedi school yet? Where you go and learn how to do lightsaber fighting?
It's on my bucket list.
Cool. I've seen some people do some really cool videos and some really cool TikToks with them.
It's on my bucket list. All right, I took away from the topic. Let's talk GPT-4. It was my one more thing tonight, but then I switched it to Perfect Match because Netflix.
Well, that's clearly inspired. But yes, I was just wondering because the ChatGPT-4 model is out to Plus users. Mm-hmm. 50 limited to 50 messages every 4 hours.
You got 50? I got 100.
Oh, well, I haven't used it yet. So I was just wondering, have you used it?
Yes.
And can you do? Is there a real difference?
Yes. The difference, the largest difference is the context window.
Okay.
So the easiest way to describe this is the previous version had like something like 4,000 tokens. Tokens are a weird way to think about it, but essentially, I forget what it's like. 4,000 tokens was the last context window, and if you think about it that way, it's like 3 to 4 words a token.
Yeah,
do the rough math. So basically, what a context window is as you have a conversation with GPT 3.5, that context window moves. Yeah. So it doesn't carry forward things that fall off. So if you talked about something in the original prompt, as long as it's in character and is still referencing things along the line, it'll kind of do a good job of it, but it may have forgotten that original prompt. The new context window is something like 52,000 tokens.
Wow.
Something like that. It's really massive. And you have the ability to basically reference entire documents and have it up to 52 pages of documents. So it could almost take this entire ergonomic assessment tool that we were just talking about, almost the entirety of the whole thing. You put it in there and be able to ask it a question, and it would be able to understand and know.
That's cool.
Which is just insane if you think about it, right? So they use the example of taxes, throwing in entire things of taxes, throwing in. And so this has been really great from a, let's throw in the entire article text for the show and get a summary and get, because that was a problem that we've had before, is like cutting that up and chopping that up. We can't quite do that and automate it for the show notes yet because the API is only available to certain developers and all that stuff. The other really interesting piece about this latest update is now it's multimodal. Now you can give it images.
Ooh.
That is only limited to a certain number of developers right now. They're still working on that. That's a work in progress, but exciting to know that it's coming. So you could give it like, I don't know, the thumbnail of this podcast episode and say, give me some suggestions for how to improve this thumbnail for a podcast episode about here's topic. And I'll go, okay, well, yeah, you probably want to do something a little bit different from that. And then you say, can you make those changes?
Yes, that would be epic.
I don't know if it can produce images. I think it can. But that's insane. Okay. So that's great. Now just imagine when it can do video.
Yeah.
Okay. This podcast, what's some feedback you have about this podcast? Can you make those changes?
That would be quite clever, wouldn't it? That would be. But then I guess because it's going to get to the point where we're not going to need to rock up. It's going to we're going to have a script to select the stories for the week. People might vote. People vote on the story to choose. Then once the time lapse has happened, then we'll take it'll take the story. It'll generate all of the script for what it's going to do. Then it's going to have AI Nick and AI Barry have our scripts all generated and have a discussion interplay with our AI heads, and it'll just go and do it with our AI voices, and we'll be there at the bar going and getting notifications going, oh look, we're about to go live.
Wow, look, we've got more listeners and viewers than we've ever had when we were just doing it ourselves.
Yeah, the irony. So there's almost a bit there, isn't there, about at what point does it stop being fun? At what, because we do this because it's something else to do. It's a bit of a break from your normal day to day. So it's that hobby aspect, isn't it? At what point does that fall over? Well, is it just a thing that we don't bother doing anymore?
I would only do it. So I would do it as like a bonus thing, and I would clearly indicate that this is like AIs talking to each other, because I believe that, yeah, we do this for fun, and if it wasn't fun, then why are we doing it?
No, I mean it's one of these things, isn't it? It's as I described to somebody else the other day, because they're asking about, I met somebody new and they're a fan. She actually described herself as a fan to me. I was like, oh, I've got a fan. Anyway,
Wow.
so we were chatting away, and I was like, look, the main reason I do my interviews the way I do them, it is like a self-developed CPD course, professional development course. If I want to learn new things, I now go and just reach out to people who are experts in the field and say, can I interview you to help promote what you do? And then the subtext of that is because I also want to learn more about what you do because it's really interesting. And I've done loads of that recently. I've learned more about safety. I've learned more about the medical domain. And then, there's loads of other stuff. And I've got a couple of other things in the hopefully in the bag coming up. And I'm just like, and I'm going to learn more about that. And it's just a great opportunity. And this is kind of the same, isn't it? Because we pick up new articles. We get to have a discussion around them, which you wouldn't. I think we get to understand articles in a greater depth than what you would do if you just read them, because we are, we're having to take them apart a bit. We're having to discuss them. We're having to have that almost a bit like we did tonight. Have that. Oh, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? But is it really? Is it actually offering any new value? And what are the issues around doing it? Blah blah. Which you wouldn't get if you just read the article. You'd end up with the end of the article going, "Oh, that's cool." Mm-hmm. So, I think so. Anyway.
I really quick. I'm attempting and failing. I'm gonna see if I can put the whole 73-page document in there, because not all the pages are, because it's 52 pages full text. Not all these pages are full text. So I'm wondering if I can throw this entire thing in there, and just we can ask it questions, because this would be really impressive if I could test this out. Let's see. So I can't select everything for some reason. Let's see. What if I do this? Okay, there we go. All right, I'm gonna see. Okay, hold on. I did the wrong model. I did the 3.5 model. Let's do GPT-4 and do paste this. Summarize the document. Oh.
Did it bin out on you?
No. I pasted the wrong thing. I posted our controversial takes on our thing. And it didn't. I can't copy for whatever reason from this document. What the heck?
I wonder if it got protection on it.
I wonder. Copy.
Yeah, it won't let you copy.
It will not let you copy.
No, they've got a protection on it.
Huh.
It won't do it at all.
There's ways around that.
I'll say we have ways around that. That's
I just want to try this in the last 2 minutes that we have here, and then we can go about our business. But this is a very,
and I'm awake and everything. This is weird.
Yeah. Where the heck did it go? Did I not save it? Let's see here. Can I save it? Download this file. Okay, there we go. And then,
how many pages can it do?
It can do up to 52
full
text pages.
Yeah, didn't me out on some.
All right, let's see here. We're gonna do this again. Okay. Moment of truth. Ready? Nope. I can't copy still. What is going on? Can I search Google for the full text and then... No. All right, we'll figure this out because pretty cool to get this to work in our favor here. I mean, if you don't have to run right at the top of the hour, like you're trying to get to sleep, I almost want to see this through and see if we can get it to work.
I've just tried to do a different report and put it through for, and it's only 35 pages long. And it doesn't like it.
Oh, it doesn't.
No.
Is it full text on all the pages? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it wants me to submit something shorter. So if I did that, but if I did.
Okay, I got it in there now. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I got it. It was too long for that. All right.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I wonder how many pages it will take.
Let me take out the glossary of terms, maybe.
I can see my role tomorrow is going to be busy.
Yeah, I can't get it to work, but it'd be interesting to play around and see if we could.
What if I just did? Finish there, right? If I finish there, that gives me 18 pages. Let's go to that. No, it's still too long. It must have a. Yeah,
it might be with the API only. I don't know.
It might be, yeah. So I need to work out just. I mean, that was 20 odd pages of hardcore stuff.
Do the playground. Do the playground if you can. Because I think that's a little different. Anyway, we're going to get out of here for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us and talking about the article tonight. And a special thank you to Camille for stopping by and chatting with us. Again, all of our Patreons will have the ability to do that in the future. So if you want to become a Patreon, just $1 gets you in the door. And you can support the show and come on here, get your words to be said, all that fun stuff. So, yeah, we'll see you next week. Maybe, wait, hang on, Barry. You're not here next week, right?
Am I here next week? I'm here next week. It's the week after I'm not.
Oh, it's the week after that you're gone. Okay, so we have nothing to worry about for next week.
No, next week we'll be here. And
okay, yes, we'll be here next week, and we'll be talking about something. And it'll be great. It'll be human factors related, I promise you that. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side of the distance between now and 2 weeks from now, or a week from now. All right.
What a week.
Good night.
Good.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for